There's a photograph from Elizabeth's wedding day in 1947 that almost never happened. Not the photograph itself, but what she's wearing in it. The pearl necklaces around her neck, 2 strands connecting her to Queen Anne and Queen Caroline, monarchs who ruled centuries before she was born, were still on public display at St. James's Palace when Elizabeth began dressing for Westminster Abbey. Someone had to race across London in a panic to retrieve them. They arrived with minutes to spare. But here's what strikes me most about that moment. Elizabeth could have married without them. She had other jewels, other options. Yet the thought of walking down that aisle without those particular pearls, without that tangible connection to the queens who came before her, was unthinkable. That's when I realized Elizabeth's necklaces were never just jewelry. They were her autobiography, written in pearls and diamonds and emeralds. Each piece marked a transformation. Each one told you exactly who she was at that moment in her life and who she was becoming. Today, we're tracing 70 years through the necklaces Elizabeth wore, from the pearls her father gave her as a girl to the pieces that became so iconic they defined her final decades. This is the story of how a young princess learned to carry the weight of history around her neck, and how she eventually perfected a look so consistent, so deliberate, that it became inseparable from the monarchy itself. The Princess Years, Gifts of Love and Lineage. Let me start with the most emotionally resonant pieces in Elizabeth's entire collection, those wedding day pearls that nearly got left behind. The Queen Anne and Queen Caroline necklaces weren't modern creations. They were 18th century pieces, first recorded in Queen Victoria's official jewellery inventory of 1896. One strand, 46 perfectly matched pearls, had belonged to Queen Anne, the last Stuart monarch. The other, 50 pearls long, came from Queen Caroline, consort of King George II. When King George VI selected these from the royal vaults for his daughter's wedding, he was making a deliberate choice. He was saying, "You're not just marrying. You're joining a lineage of queens that stretches back 3 centuries. When worn together, these necklaces appear almost as one unified piece. The pearls match so perfectly, their graduated sizes so harmonious, that they seem designed to be worn together. 2 centuries of royal tradition, somehow seamlessly aligned. But Elizabeth wore something else that day too, something even more personal. Since she was a small girl, her father had continued a tradition started by Queen Victoria. On each birthday, he gave Elizabeth 2 pearls. Not one, like Victoria had given her daughters, but 2, doubling the gesture, doubling the love. By the time Elizabeth turned 18 in 1944, she had accumulated enough pearls for a 3-strand necklace. Every pearl represented a birthday. Every strand was a year of her father's devotion made tangible. She wore this necklace on her wedding day, alongside the historic pieces. And here's what breaks my heart. When George VI died suddenly in 1952, Elizabeth was just 25. She would never receive another pearl from him. That necklace was complete, final. The conversation between father and daughter, translated into pearls, was over. Years later, recognizing she couldn't wear the original constantly without risking damage, Elizabeth commissioned an identical replica. Then, in 1979, the Emir of Qatar gifted her a third, nearly identical 3-strand pearl necklace. By the 1990s, she owned 3 versions and rotated between them freely. But the original, the one made from her father's birthday gifts, remained the most precious. This is why, in her final years, you see Elizabeth in photograph after photograph wearing these 3-strand pearls. They weren't a fashion choice. They were a daily conversation with her father. Coming of age, the gifts that marked her transition. April 21, 1947. Cape Town, South Africa. Princess Elizabeth turned 21 during her first major overseas tour. That evening, at a grand ball at Government House, Field Marshal Jan Smuts presented her with a diamond necklace featuring 21 diamonds, one for each year of her age. At its center hung a 10-carat diamond of extraordinary brilliance. This was the first major diamond piece that was entirely Elizabeth's, not inherited, not borrowed, but given to her as an adult woman with her own identity and importance. A few days later, Sir Ernest Oppenheimer, who controlled De Beers diamonds, added a 6-carat diamond to the gift, specifically designed to be detachable. Even as a princess, Elizabeth was being treated as a woman with agency and taste, and she proved she had both. After becoming queen, Elizabeth had the necklace redesigned. She shortened it from 21 diamonds to 15 and had the removed stones fashioned into a matching bracelet. She wasn't precious about preserving pieces exactly as received. She was purposeful, adapting them to serve her needs. But the most extraordinary wedding gift came with an unprecedented gesture of trust. The Nizam of Hyderabad, one of the wealthiest men in the world, couldn't attend Elizabeth's wedding in person. So he instructed Cartier in Paris that the bride-to-be should select her own gift from their collections. Think about that. He was giving a 21-year-old princess a blank check at one of the world's most prestigious jewelry houses. Elizabeth chose a Cartier creation from the 1930s. 38 diamonds set in platinum, leading to a central pendant of extraordinary grandeur. Pave-set emerald-cut diamonds clustered around a pear-shaped drop. The Nizam accepted her choice without hesitation, and Elizabeth wore this necklace constantly throughout her entire reign. It became a genuine favorite, not locked away for special occasions, but worn repeatedly, photographed constantly, becoming almost her signature piece. Less than 3 weeks after her father's death, when Elizabeth sat for the famous Dorothy Wilding portraits that would define her image as a young queen, she wore the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace. When those portraits were reproduced on millions of British postage stamps from 1953 to 1971, the Nizam necklace appeared on envelopes in households around the globe. The necklace Elizabeth chose for herself became the necklace that defined her public image. She was saying, without words, "I am a woman who knows her own mind." The current valuation? Approximately £66 million, likely the single most valuable piece in the entire royal collection. The coronation, crossing into history, February 6, 1952. Everything changed. When King George VI died, 25-year-old Elizabeth discovered that the rules had transformed completely. She no longer had access merely to gifts given to her as a princess. She now had access to the entire historic collection of British crown jewels, pieces created for queens regnant across centuries. For her coronation on June 2, 1953, she could have chosen the Nizam necklace, her favourite already on the postage stamps. She could have chosen the South African diamonds or any piece personally hers. Instead, she chose a necklace whose history stretched back almost a century. In 1858, Queen Victoria lost a beloved diamond necklace in a legal dispute with the King of Hanover. Devastated, she instructed Garrard to create a replacement using 28 diamonds from her collection. What they created featured a central pendant with the Lahore diamond, a 22.48-carat stone acquired when British forces breached the Lahore fort in 1849. Victoria wore this necklace constantly. It appeared in portrait after portrait, particularly during her Diamond Jubilee. By the time Victoria died, it had become known as the coronation necklace, not because of Victoria's coronation, but because future queens chose to wear it at theirs. Queen Alexandra wore it in 1902, Queen Mary in 1911, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, in 1937. Now, in 1953, Elizabeth II faced a choice. She was saying, "I am not simply Elizabeth. I am a link in a chain. I am wearing this because it connects me to Victoria, to Alexandra, to Mary, to my mother. My role is not to disrupt that continuity, but to honor it. It would remain one of her most frequently worn pieces for major state occasions throughout her entire reign. And in May 2023, when Queen Camilla was crowned, she too wore the coronation necklace. The tradition continued unbroken from Victoria to Camilla, a glittering chain of queenship 165 years long. The sapphires, a father's final gift transformed. Among all Elizabeth's jewellery, one suite held particular meaning, not because it was the most expensive or famous, but because it was the last significant gift from her father. King George VI purchased a Victorian-era sapphire and diamond suite, believed to date from around 1850, and gave it to Elizabeth as a wedding gift in 1947. The necklace featured 18 graduated oblong sapphires, each ranging from 8 to 30 carats, surrounded by diamond halos. After her father's death, Elizabeth made a decision that reveals how she understood her role. She had the necklace redesigned. She shortened it and removed the largest sapphire, but rather than setting it aside, she had it converted into a pendant that hung from the front of the shortened necklace. In 1959, she created a brooch from another sapphire. Then, in 1963, she commissioned Garrard to create a tiara to complete the suite. What had begun as a single wedding gift from her father had blossomed into a complete parure. Necklace, earrings, bracelet, brooch, and tiara, all coordinating, all united by her personal vision. Throughout the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, Elizabeth wore the George VI sapphire suite when she wanted to project authority and formal elegance. The deep blue was striking against her pale complexion, and the suite had a gravitas perfect for official portraiture. In 2020, when Elizabeth was photographed for an official Canadian portrait, her 70th year as Queen of Canada, she chose the George VI sapphire suite. She had worn it on a Canadian tour in 1990, 30 years earlier. By choosing it again, she was creating a visual bookend to her long reign and honouring her father, whose gift had been transformed throughout her lifetime. The diplomatic power, necklaces as soft power. By the 1960s, Elizabeth had learned something essential. Power could be expressed through how you acknowledge gifts from other nations. In 1953, Brazil sent a coronation gift, a stunning necklace of 9 large, square-cut aquamarines interspersed with diamonds with matching earrings. Elizabeth could have worn it occasionally when acknowledging Brazil, then returned it to the vault. Instead, in 1957, she invested significant royal resources in transforming it. She commissioned Garrard to create an entire parure, a matching tiara, bracelet, and brooch. When Garrard created the tiara, they took the larger pendant aquamarine from the necklace and reset it at the front of the tiara, creating a dramatic focal point. Now the necklace could be worn with or without its pendant, depending on whether Elizabeth wore the tiara. The result was one of the most visually striking parures in the entire royal collection. When Elizabeth wore all the pieces together, she created an overwhelming statement of blue and white brilliance. And every time she wore the full Brazilian aquamarine parure, she was making a diplomatic statement. Brazil matters to me. Your gift was so valued that I invested in expanding it. When I wear these aquamarines, I am honoring your nation. This is soft power expressed through jewelry. In 1967, King Faisal of Saudi Arabia commissioned Harry Winston to create a platinum necklace for Elizabeth, 84 carats of diamonds in multiple rows of extraordinary complexity. But what's most interesting is the prestige this necklace acquired through how Elizabeth shared it. In 1983, she loaned it to Princess Diana for a charity ball in Sydney. Later, she loaned it to Sophie, Countess of Wessex. Each lending increased the necklace's prestige and visibility. Elizabeth was saying, "This necklace belongs to the monarchy, not to me alone." The weight of empire, the Delhi Durbar necklace. If the Brazilian aquamarine tells a story about future building, the Delhi Durbar necklace tells a more complex story about history, empire, and the weight of the past. In the early 19th century, Princess Augusta, Duchess of Cambridge, won a box in a German state lottery. Inside were approximately 40 magnificent cabochon emeralds. These became known as the Cambridge Emeralds. When they came up for inheritance in 1910, Queen Mary's brother left them to his mistress. Queen Mary was scandalized. She paid £10,000, an enormous sum, to acquire them and bring them back into the royal collection. Having secured the Cambridge Emeralds, Queen Mary created a parure to showcase them for the Delhi Durbar of 1911, a grand ceremonial event celebrating British power in India. The necklace featured 9 Cambridge emeralds alternating with diamonds, with removable pendants including the Cullinan 7 diamond. When Queen Mary died in 1953, this necklace, laden with all its history of empire, family scandal, and German lotteries, passed to Elizabeth. Elizabeth didn't immediately wear it. It was too heavy with history, too clearly associated with her grandmother. But on her Commonwealth tour in 1954, she debuted the Delhi Durbar necklace for the first time as Queen, pairing it with the Vladimir tiara set with emeralds. From that point forward, whenever Elizabeth needed to project the full weight of monarchy, whenever she wanted to acknowledge the historic depth of the crown, she reached for this necklace. The last time it was publicly seen was in the summer of 2022, displayed at the Platinum Jubilee exhibition at Buckingham Palace. Ironically, the exhibition was still on display the day Elizabeth died. The Delhi Durbar necklace represents Elizabeth's complex relationship with the imperial past. She didn't reject it or apologize for it, but neither did she flaunt it. She wore these emeralds as a statement that she understood history, inherited its complexity, and carried its weight forward with dignity. The perfected signature, from variety to uniform. By the 1990s, something extraordinary happened. The experimentation ended. The variety narrowed, and in their place emerged something far more powerful, a perfected signature look. The foundation was those 3-strand pearls, the ones that began with her father's birthday gifts. Elizabeth stopped rotating between multiple different necklaces. She stopped wearing the grand historic pieces with the frequency she had in earlier years. Instead, the 3-strand pearls became almost uniform. She wore them to daytime engagements with such consistency that they became inseparable from her visual identity. Photographs from the 1990s, 2000s, and 2010s show Elizabeth in her signature look. A monochromatic 2-piece suit in a bold, bright color, a matching hat, a brooch pinned close to her heart, and around her neck, the 3-strand pearls. The effect was powerful because of its consistency. You could look at a photograph from 2000, then 2015, and the fundamental elements were the same. This consistency wasn't accidental, it was deliberate. Elizabeth had learned that perfection isn't about constant novelty. It's about refinement within a known vocabulary. It's about understanding exactly what works for you and perfecting it relentlessly. For evening occasions, she needed a grand diamond necklace that was formal but not ceremonially overwhelming. She chose the diamond festoon necklace, commissioned by her father in 1950, using 105 diamond collars designated as crown heirlooms. The festoon necklace became her default grand piece, the one she reached for when she wanted formal elegance for state banquets and official dinners. Photographs from countless state opening of Parliament ceremonies show Elizabeth in the festoon necklace paired with the diamond diadem. In May 2023, Catherine, Princess of Wales, wore the diamond festoon necklace for an official portrait marking King Charles III's coronation. The piece passed visually from one generation to the next, carrying all its history into the contemporary reign. The autobiography written in jewels. In her final years, even as her health declined and her public appearances became less frequent, Elizabeth continued to wear the three-strand pearls. She wore them to the state opening of Parliament in 2021, months after Prince Philip's death. She wore them in her final official portraits. Even at the very end, with her hand trembling slightly, she would reach up to ensure the pearls were properly positioned. When Elizabeth died in September 2022, the jewellery she had collected and worn and loved across her lifetime passed into the hands of the next generation. Queen Camilla wears the George VI sapphire suite. Catherine wears the Japanese pearl choker and the diamond festoon necklace. But the most important legacy isn't the pieces themselves. It's the lesson they teach us. Elizabeth understood that jewellery is never just about beauty or value. It's about meaning. It's about love translated into precious materials. It's about relationships marked and remembered. It's about the deliberate construction of identity across a lifetime. She understood that how you present yourself to the world matters, that consistency matters, that loyalty to pieces you love matters, and that the necklaces you choose to wear tell a story, not just about your taste, but about your values, your relationships, and your understanding of your place in the world. As we look at her jewellery today, we're looking at 70 years of a woman's life translated into diamonds, pearls, and emeralds. We're looking at a daughter's love for her father, expressed in pearls worn every day. We're looking at a queen's understanding of duty, expressed in historic pieces carried forward from previous generations. We're looking at a woman who knew exactly who she was and expressed that identity through jewellery that became as iconic as her reign itself. The necklaces didn't just adorn Elizabeth, they told her story, from princess to monarch, from variety to perfection, from a young woman learning to carry history's weight to an elder stateswoman who had perfected the art of visual communication. Every clasp fastened was a choice. Every piece worn was a statement. And together, they created an autobiography more honest and revealing than any words could ever be. Which of Elizabeth's necklaces speaks to you most? The pearls that connected her to her father? The coronation necklace that linked her to queens across centuries? Or the pieces she transformed and made entirely her own? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories waiting to be told about the women who wore these jewels and the lives they lived. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Elizabeth's life, one necklace at a time.